I built that house with my own hands. Not metaphorically. Literally, I own a construction business. And when I finally bought the lakefront lot where my father used to take me fishing as a kid, I designed and built the home myself. Every beam, every window placement, every detail of the dock that extended out over the same water where I learned to cast a line at age 7. It took years of saving and planning and waiting for the right piece of land. And when it finally came together, it was exactly what I had imagined for most of my adult life. The location was intentional in one specific way. My property sat just outside the boundary of a large HOA-controlled neighborhood, close enough to enjoy the scenery and the community feel of the area, far enough to live without a 12-page rule book governing the color of my garage doors. That last part turned out to matter more than I expected. Her name was Karen Mitchell. She sat on 3 HOA committees and approached neighborhood governance with the intensity of someone who had found their lives calling in architectural review boards. From the week I moved in, she operated under the apparent conviction that my property should fall under HOA authority, a belief that no document, survey, or legal explanation was ever going to shake. It started with the mailbox, then the fence aisle, then the boat dock, which she described in an HOA meeting as visually inconsistent with community standards that, again, did not apply to my land. Every few weeks she'd appear on my property line with a new complaint, and every few weeks I'd explain, as patiently as I could manage, that my lot wasn't part of the association and never had been. After the 4th or 5th conversation, I stopped relying on verbal explanations. I pulled certified county surveys, official boundary maps, and recorded property documents that showed, in precise legal terms, exactly where HOA jurisdiction ended and my land began. The gap between the two was not ambiguous. It wasn't a matter of interpretation. I showed her the paperwork directly. She looked at it, handed it back, and filed another complaint the following week. Neighbors started mentioning that Karen raised my property regularly at HOA meetings, a property she had no authority over, in front of board members who had no jurisdiction to act on anything she said. Some people found it entertaining. Others just felt uncomfortable watching someone this personally invested in a situation that wasn't hers to control. I stopped engaging entirely and focused on my life, my business, and finishing the last few details on the house. Then I woke up at 2 a.m. to red and white light, strobing through my bedroom curtains. The rear section of the house was burning. By the time I got outside, flames had already moved to the back wall and were working toward the roof. Firefighters arrived within minutes and worked the blaze for hours. They saved the structure from total loss, but the damage was extensive. Rooms I had built myself, gone. A kitchen I'd spent 3 months on, gutted. The dock my father had stood on the day I showed him the finished property, destroyed. The initial assumption was electrical. It's always electrical until it isn't. Investigators processed the scene over several days, and when the fire marshal's report came back, the language was careful and specific in the way official documents are when the findings are serious. The evidence was inconsistent with accidental ignition. An origin point had been identified. The cause was not natural. The case moved from the fire marshal's office to the detective division. What followed was months of methodical investigation. Neighbor interviews, security footage pulled from cameras on 3 different nearby properties, phone records, timeline reconstruction. The footage from a neighbor's driveway camera 2 houses down had captured vehicle movement near my property during the window the investigators had identified. That footage, combined with other evidence assembled over the following weeks, pointed in one direction with increasing clarity. Karen Mitchell was arrested and charged with arson. I want to pause there, because I think it's important to say, I did not see this coming. Obsessive, boundary ignoring, rules weaponizing neighbor. Yes, I had cataloged all of that, but the mental step from filing frivolous HOA complaints to committing a felony is one I genuinely hadn't mapped. It forced me to reconsider every interaction we'd had and recognize that what I'd been reading as controlling behavior had been something darker underneath. The trial was thorough. Prosecutors presented the fire investigation findings, the footage, digital evidence, witness testimony, and a paper trail that the defense was unable to meaningfully challenge. Forensic experts walked the court through the technical findings in detail. The physical evidence from the origin point, the timeline that placed her near my property, the documentation that built, piece by piece, a narrative the facts simply would not let go of. I sat through most of it focused and quiet. I had made a decision early on that I wasn't going to spend the trial in a state of rage, because rage would have meant she had taken something else from me beyond the house. I watched the evidence get presented. I listened to the testimony. I trusted the process to do what it was designed to do. The judge's ruling was unambiguous. Karen was convicted. What I remember most about the moment the verdict was read isn't what I felt. It's what I observed. The courtroom was silent in that specific way that happens when a decision carries real weight, when everyone in the room understands that something is actually being settled. And then Karen began talking. Not crying, not absorbing the moment. Talking. Criticizing the investigators. Questioning the witnesses. Explaining to anyone who would listen why the outcome was unfair. People in the gallery looked at each other. I looked at the exit. The rebuilding had already started before the trial ended. Friends showed up on weekends. Members of the actual HOA. People who had watched the situation unfold for 2 years and never had any obligation to help me with anything. Came by to assist with framing and finish work. My father, who was older now and couldn't do the heavy lifting he once could, sat in a lawn chair at the edge of property and watched and gave instructions nobody asked for, and it was one of the best things I'd ever seen. The house is finished. It stands on the same lot, same footprint, same view of the lake that I grew up believing was the most beautiful thing in my county. I've updated a few things, improved some of the original design choices, added a dock that's better than the one that burned. Here's what I've arrived at. Sitting on that dock in the evenings, watching the light go off the water. The obsessive need to control what doesn't belong to you is not a minor personality quirk. It is something to take seriously because it doesn't stop at complaints. It doesn't stop at meetings. It doesn't stop at paperwork. Some people, when they cannot exercise authority over something, don't let it go. They escalate in ways that are genuinely dangerous until reality intervenes. Reality intervened. My property records were always correct. My boundaries were always documented. My land was never part of that HOA. The lake is the same as it always was. And I'm still here.